Manager making employees clock out for 2 hours then clock back in so he doesn't have to pay overtime. I work at a family-owned restaurant. 2 people recently quit so has been scheduling issues. This past weekend my manager has 2 of the cashier food runners work 6 hours, take a 2-hour unpaid break then clock back in for 2 hours. He loudly told them that they cannot leave and go home so they just sit around until they can clock back in. He has the cooks do the same thing. I think this is ridiculous. Thoughts? That is illegal. They can leave and come back. Report to State Labor Department, if you have one. Split shifts are not illegal. However, not allowing you to leave the premises while not on the clock is not okay. Leave if you can. Or threaten to lawyer up with the other cooks. That's ridiculous and probably not even legal. That happened to me when I worked at a daycare except it was up to a 3-hour unpaid break per day some days, and they would try to get me to sit in on classes during that time. I just refused and walked to a nearby bagel shop to wait it out since I didn't have a car at the time. They can't legally enforce it anyways. Wage theft plain and simple. Nope, screw that. Contact your state labor regulatory agency and report their asses. This is wage theft, pure and simple. That's illegal. If you can't leave, you are on paid time. He is gonna owe a lot of back wages. Report him. That's illegal AF, you're on the job site. Go to the Labor Commission. Report this shit immediately. Company in my area used to do this, someone finally said something. They are no longer in business. I'm not being paid for this time, yes? Right. Then. It's my time, not yours, right? And forcing me to stay here on my own time against my will I'm fairly certain violates several laws, not least of which has something to do with false imprisonment, yes? Yeah, fuck you. I'll be back after my mandatory unpaid break is done. Or maybe not. If you're released from duty for 2 hours and are free to leave, this is a perfectly legal split shift. It sucks, but this is common in many industries. In this case, however, you're not allowed to leave. Under the FLSA, you're engaged to wait and this must be paid time. Your employer is breaking federal law. This would fall under on-call rules under DOL. If you cannot use the time as you see fit, go shopping, watch a movie, etc., you are considered on call and must be paid for that time. Since you cannot receive tips if you aren't working, you must be paid at least the regular non-tipped minimum wage for your state for all hours you are not working but are not able to use the time for yourself. Stupid. If you can't leave, you should be paid. I work at a family-owned restaurant. As soon as you said that, I knew how this was gonna go before I read any further. Tell your boss to screw off, or just outright quit. These types of businesses are always the worst to work for. Edit. Here's a paradox: if this family-owned business thinks its behavior is normal and justified, then why don't they hire more of their family to work there? This is wage theft. You are due your full wages on the designated payday. You need to immediately file a wage and hour complaint with your local labor commissioner. File a complaint with your state tax board. File a complaint with the IRS if your employer is a franchise operation. File a complaint with the company that grants the franchise. Just about every franchise contract has a morals clause where the franchise can be withdrawn by the franchise grantor in the event of a morals issue. Big-name companies want to protect their reputation. If he requires you to stay, he is required to pay you. Contact your DOL and possibly a lawyer. Now, but Home Depot just had to pay out for something similar to this. If you are asked to clock out but cannot leave or control your time, you still need to be paid. This is illegal and needs to be reported immediately. Nope. If you're off the clock, it's your time in which you can do whatever you want, like leave. I personally would push back. I did not agree to a split shift in my availability. I am unavailable for those changes as I work around my personal obligations and a split shift is not conducive. I will not be working them moving forward. My availability is 30 as a whole shift with a 30 minutes break as needed. If they say the expectation is, respond with your expectation does not alter my availability. If you're required to stay, they're required to pay. It's the law. They can definitely do a split shift with a 2-hour break in the middle, but they can't require the employees to stay on premises or be on call and expected to immediately return should the need arise. Call the Department of Labor or whatever it is called in your state and they'll happily put the restaurant in its place. He can legally split their shifts like that but not make them stay on the premises. Those kinds of shifts are all too common in food service where you have intense rushes and then lengthy lulls. They can't have their cake and eat it too. WTF, they cannot just make employees stay on premise whilst also not paying them. Your local U.S. Department of Labor Office of Wage Salary would be very interested to learn about this. If they're not on the clock, the manager cannot tell them what they can or cannot do. Full stop. Either they're on the clock being paid, or they're doing whatever they want to. If you aren't paying me to be here, I'm not gonna be here. Sounds like a hostage situation. Illegal. If he's controlling your time, then he has to pay. Period. If they aren't being paid, he legally cannot force them to stay on the premises. This should be reported to the Department of Labor. Once I am clocked out, my boss can bite me. I'm leaving till I am being able to clock back in. This is just forcing people that are desperate to hang around to get as much money they can from a shitty boss. Oh boy, another one of these totally real posts where I say, name the company. Report them for illegal activity. And please get back to us. I await with bated breath. I had a manager at Domino's try to do that. We argued about it and I told him if I clock out I'm not coming back until the next day. He gave up and I stayed clock in. I am still surprised our labor laws were not removed slowly by those rich companies. Thanks for the previous politicians for actually taking care of us. Wage theft can be reported to both the state and federal departments of labor. If they're not free to leave, they're working and must be paid. Illegal and many are probably owed back pay. Report immediately to the labor board. He made me do X and he told me to do X are not the same thing. Not that I am standing up for your scumbag boss at all, but I really want to point this out. I think the labor movement in America would be much stronger if people realized that an instruction from a boss is not a legally binding edict. When he clocks you out, just go home. You're done for the day apparently. Totally unlawful. If this is the US, it's wage theft. Do not let them get away with this. Report it to your doll. When you punch out, that is your time. Leave, see a movie, etc. If he makes you stay, he must pay you. Not only is this ridiculous, but it's also illegal. Report their asses to the he doll. The family that prays together. Straight up wage theft. See Home Depot lawsuit. Obviously illegal. Contact doll. Report to the doll. Unpaid breaks are duty free. If your boss is asking you to stay on the premises, that is not duty free. And your occupation likely falls under non-exempt. Your manager will likely have to pay up. Call the Department of Labor. Don't argue semantics with your supervisor, don't ask HR what to do, don't complain to your co-workers, call the Department of Labor and report IT. I wouldn't stay there if I'm clocked out. I'm on my time then. Illegal, and I wish someone would try that shit with me so I can finally get the money I'm owed. Yeah, that's awful. I suggest everyone look for a different job. Illegal, and you should never do this. They have zero authority. Not on the clock. Clock out and go home. Why would anyone give 2 hours unpaid? Everyone leave and go home. When you punch out and don't come back, they cannot stop you or make you stay. They are nobody off the clock. I would get together with all employees and just walk out.